Welcome back to some new PettyRevenge stories, where people share small victories over those who wronged them. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. And now let's start with the first story. It's called Made Profit From It. A couple of years ago, I bought my first house. Excited to settle in, my next task was signing up for internet. Little did I know, I was about to face one of the most frustrating customer service experiences of my life. It turns out that for all new builds in the area, there's a system in place that forces you to sign up with a specific provider. Let's call them Air, a company that not only handles internet but also connects you to the grid. At first it seemed like a good deal, but I quickly learned otherwise. When I called up Air, they were eager to sign me up. So I thought everything was in order, but about a week later, I received an email saying my order had been cancelled. Apparently, this was a common occurrence with them. They weren't willing to file the extra paperwork required for new builds. So I called again, and once again, my order was cancelled. After going back and forth with them for about a month, I was incredibly frustrated. All I wanted was to get internet set up. Then, just when I thought things couldn't get worse, I spotted a special offer. If you signed up with Air, you'd get a free Apple TV box. At this point, I figured I had nothing to lose, so I gave it another try. A few days later, an Apple TV box arrived. And of course, my order was cancelled once more. But then something clicked. If they were going to keep sending me Apple TV boxes, only to cancel my orders, maybe I could turn this broken system to my advantage. While surviving on a mobile hotspot and fed up with their lack of service, I decided to make the most of their flawed process. I repeatedly signed up with Air, using the loophole to my benefit. By the end of the month, I had accumulated 10 Apple TV boxes. At this point, I had gotten a bit of satisfaction from the situation, but I still didn't have internet. So I walked into one of their physical stores, explained the situation to a bewildered employee, and within a couple of minutes, the store manager was on the phone with their network center. Miraculously, I had internet set up the very next day. As for the Apple TV boxes, I ended up selling them all, turning my frustration into a profit. The next story is called Tech Support Revenge. A few years before caller ID became widely available, I was working at a company that made high-speed modems. These were premium products, and our customers were all large corporations and organizations that wanted the fastest speeds on the market. One of our customers had an IT guy who had quite the temper. Every time he ran into an issue, he'd call in, shouting at the top of his lungs. Customers were assigned to specific engineers, so poor Ted always had to be the one to deal with him. One day, over lunch, I asked Ted if he'd heard from Major Decibels, our nickname for this particularly loud customer, and Ted started laughing. As it turned out, he'd set up one of his test modems to call the IT guy's home number at 2, 3 and 4 AM every night. When the IT guy picked up, he'd hear the high-pitched squeal of a modem trying to connect. To keep it subtle, Ted even reduced the modem speed to standard levels of the time, so the sound wouldn't be too recognizable as one of our products. Since the IT guy was on 24/7 call, he couldn't just unplug the phone, and this went on for about a month until he finally changed his number. I was pretty impressed by Ted's calculated approach to handling a difficult customer. The third story is called 9 Months Revenge. Back in the late 90s, I was working in a technical support team based at a client site. One of my colleagues, who wasn't exactly a team player and didn't like sharing information, ended up leaving our company to work directly for the client. Some months later, I had an interview to also work for this client. I did really well on all the interview tasks throughout the day, until the final interview, where that same ex-colleague was present. Later, I found out that I didn't get the job because he claimed I asked too many questions at work. Well, of course I asked questions. especially if I knew he had the answer instead of just guessing. Months later, early December, we all showed up to work as usual, only to be called into a meeting. Our boss had flown in that morning, and the main client manager was there too. Within 10 minutes we were told to collect our personal belongings, and were escorted off-site. We'd been made redundant on the spot. It seemed this ex-colleague had stirred up enough trouble to shift blame onto us, leading the client to cancel our support contract. It took me 3 months to find a new job, which required me to work and live away from home during the week. A few months into this new role, I happened to see that same ex-colleague going into my manager's office. I had to keep my cool and wait until he was leaving, but I made sure to give a quick hi as we crossed paths. His shocked reaction was priceless. After he left, I went into my manager's office to check if he was being interviewed. He confirmed it, so I asked if he'd inquired about why the ex-colleague left his previous job. The manager hadn't. He hadn't looked too deep, but I happened to know why. After we'd been let go, my ex-colleague had been dismissed too, for taking his secretary on work trips she didn't really have business attending. In the end, the ex-colleague wasn't offered a role at the company. I stayed there for 6 months before finding something closer to home, but I always be grateful to that company for giving me the chance to turn the tables on someone who'd once gotten me made redundant. The last story is called Improving Productivity. Years ago, when I was a new manager, I had an employee who was a lot older than me. I was around 30 and she was about 65. She often just did the bare minimum, and it was starting to affect the work environment. I'd get complaints that she was playing solitaire on her computer, but I never had any solid proof. We had several conversations about productivity and pitching in more to help others in the office. Each time she'd improve temporarily, but then she'd go back to slacking off. One day I came in through the back door and caught her playing solitaire on her computer. I was both surprised and frustrated, but I decided to not say anything right away. Instead, I waited until she went out for lunch. Now, this was quite a while ago, and cybersecurity wasn't as strict as it is today. Our computers were pretty open, and users had full admin rights, because most people weren't very familiar with computers, except for me. So when she left her computer unlocked during lunch, I decided to take action. I went to her computer and changed the command line on her solitaire icon, so it would open our work software instead of solitaire. Then I raided. When she came back from lunch, I could see from my office that she was trying to open solitaire, but every time she clicked it, the work software came up instead. She tried a few more times, each time getting the same result, until finally she just gave up and got back to work. From that point on, there was no more solitaire, and I had a slightly more productive employee. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. Also, if you want to support me further, check out the channel membership or Patreon. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.